Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October edition of Techspert Talks. I'm Troy Rainey, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today's presentation is Enhancing Analytics with Qlik Predict with our own Stephen Presland. Stephen, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Stephen Preston. I'm Director of Product Management for AI Machine Learning within the analytics business. I've been at Qlik for 9.5 years, been a fantastic journey so far, and seen huge advances in AI and machine learning across the whole Qlik offering. And so it's really exciting today to sort of walk through how customers can be successful with Qlik Predict in their analytics toolkit.
Great. Today we're going to be looking at how ML experiments work. We're going to look at some practical examples, talk about how that works in our production environment, and even look at some new capabilities. Stephen, can you quickly explain for us what Qlik Predict is?
Yeah, so we have been building great dashboards that look at what happened in the past. Qlik Predict is a set of capabilities as part of Qlik Cloud that allow you to build predictive models and then to use those to see what might happen in the future, to resolve issues before they happen rather than just reacting to the numbers once they appear.
Yeah. Now, with any machine learning, I understand that it looks at historical data and AI engines analyze that, but could you explain more about how this works?
Yes, so classical machine learning. Here we're taking a set of your historic data and then using that to train a model that can then predict what that outcome might be. One, for example, is just a yes/no question. Will we run out of inventory? Good next step could be from multiple different outcomes. That's where multi-class classification comes in, which products will be out of stock. Then we start to get into predicting numbers. Regression is about predicting a number at a point in time in the future. So how much are we going to have left? These build up to multivariate time series, where rather than just predicting a single number at a point in time, we're going to make a prediction about the set of data points into time. So maybe over the next 14 days or so. We can now say, okay, well, how will the inventory levels and customer demand change over the next quarter? So it's about finding what's the right thing for the question that you're going to ask.
I understand you've got a good example of how this works in a practical dashboard. Can you tell us about what this app is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So this here is a customer telco dashboard, all about people's mobile telephone plans.
Okay, so this looks at mobile phone customers' subscriptions. I see historical data on how many accounts, what plans they're on, their usage, how much they're paying each month.
Yeah, so we can easily start to see here that we've got a lot of customers on our purple plan, and we're getting a lot of revenue from it.
Okay, so the length of the bar is the number of accounts, and the purple bar is how much revenue we're getting from those plans.
Yeah, and immediately we can start to see, for example, the red plan, which is, we've got a reasonable number of customers, but the revenue we're getting from that plan is not brilliant.
Very cool, and we're used to this kind of historical analytics. How have you applied the predictive part?
Absolutely. So if we shift over, now we're starting to look at how many are predicted to cancel. So now we're predicting that 454 of those, which 14% of those are likely to cancel. And we can start to see this red plan is really showing out as the high risk for cancellations.
This is really cool. So it's looking at predictive data based on a model, and we're already getting some insights. Can you then dive even further into the factors affecting this calculation?
Yeah, absolutely. As I look at explanations, good example is this list here of the features, that are having the greatest influence on cancellation. The biggest influence was that customer had negative conversations with us in their chat.
Well, that's probably because they're already unhappy and want to cancel, so it might be hard to turn that ship around.
Yeah, so let's ignore that one for the moment. But then the plan type and the base fee are quite important. We can see that as the base fee increases, the likelihood of customers cancelling is increasing. But we've also got a big issue with our red plan.
So it's the dark blue that are customers that are likely to cancel.
Yes, and because this bar is so far out, it has much higher influence on the outcome. So we can drill into all of this and explore in more detail, but immediately at that overall level, we can see red plans of problem, base fee. If that gets too high, we're not going to be competitive.
How could you use this information to take action to help limit the cancellations?
Yeah, so let's take a look at this scenario where I've got a customer, they have called into the call center, or maybe they're on an online chat. They're wanting to cancel their plan. I can provide this dashboard to my operational teams, and they can use this to simulate what might be the best option to offer that customer. We've selected a single customer. Currently, they're predicted to cancel.
So in this chart, low percentage in light blue means a happy customer, and a high number or purple means likely to cancel. So with this tool in the hands of a customer support contact, they can easily see how changing the plan or the base fee will directly affect that outcome. That's really cool.
Absolutely. I'm going to offer the customer a $38 base fee and move them to the green plan.
And that's saying that they're not likely to cancel. That's great.
Yeah, maybe we could put them on to the purple plan.
So is all this predictive data just right there for the analyst to play with?
Yeah, just to sort of bring to life what's actually happening here. Every time I make a change, it's running real-time predictions from the Qlik engine to those predictive models. It's a powerful extension of the power of the Qlik engine compared with the predictive models that come out of Qlik Predict.
How could management or the powers that be use this predictive data to make some strategic decisions?
Absolutely. If I'm defining the pricing strategy, here I've got 454 customers predicted to cancel, but we've also need to increase revenue, maybe by 4%. That's show me that we're getting a 2% increase in cancellations. We don't want to be increasing cancellations, we want to be reducing cancellations.
Right, and as we've seen before, that red plan is definitely a problem.
So if we were to move everybody to the purple plan, not only can we increase the revenue, but we can also decrease the overall cancellation rate. And from the side here, I've asked generative AI to provide me with a clear summary of what's going on in this scenario.
So with this, you can try different options, understand the details, and help make decisions to improve the offering going forward. Can you show us how you set this up?
Absolutely. So let's jump in. I've got an empty space. First thing that we're going to do is create a new ML experiment.
Right, so this used to be called AutoML, but the ML experiment is still there.
So it used to be called AutoML. It's now called Qlik Predict. But the concept of what we're doing is we're creating experiments, which is where we train our models, and then deploying when we deploy those models. That is all still the same.
Okay.
Get my data set that I'm going to use for training and take this data set, which we've prepared based upon the data that was in my Qlik application, where every row in this data represents a customer. And one of the fields here is we've got churn. So this is a yes, no. We can see there's a yes, no values, and that's going to be our target. So we're going to specify that target there. And now Qlik Predict is automatically suggesting which of these fields should be used as features in predictive terms. And so I'm going to take a few of these off. Account ID has already been removed because that's unique for every row. Country, we've only got one country, so it's removed that.
So after looking at the data, Qlik Predict has automatically made some suggestions about which fields might help build this model?
Yeah, that's correct. We can see some insights here about how some of that data may be processed. Next, there are a number of different algorithms here that we're going to try. We're going to let it use all of the algorithms. But importantly, we've got this intelligent mode. This means that we're actually going to run many different models, and we're going to let Qlik Predict analyze the output of those models, but it's going to do a lot of that processing and that decision making for me. So I can run the experiment.
So it's taking all those algorithms, calculating them against your training target to determine which one performs the best predictions with this data?
Yeah, and it's not just the choice of algorithm, but it's also the choice of feature. It's the choice of things under the covers, like running it with anomaly detection or looking for outliers in the data and other pieces of processing based upon some data science best practice.
Okay, and it looks like we've got a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. This cat boost classification model, which is best, most accurate and fastest. So we've really got a great example there. If we look at this model training summary, we've dropped one of the features because it had a high correlation with our target. It was potentially a bit too predictive. Similarly, we've got a lot of these features that have been removed for low permutation. they had very little influence, so we can remove them.
That's so cool that it automatically made all those changes for you.
Yeah, and similarly, we can see with the percentage importance and the SHAP importance, which should look familiar because
Yeah.
this is the data that we just had within our application. As I'm developing the model, I can start to see that information come to life. What's really powerful is that we can compare and we can also analyze the models.
This looks familiar.
Yes, and that's because we're using the power of the Qlik engine. This is all built by Qlik Predict. We've literally a couple of minutes since we trained our model. We're already starting to understand the impact and the peril of the red plan. And we can see how this impacts the different features before we decide that we want to deploy it.
Very cool.
That deployment process is where we then make that available to predict a model. Open that deployment up. We need to approve the model, activate that model.
So now that we've got this model, it's deployed and activated, what's the next step?
Yeah, so we're going to create a batch prediction, specify the data that we want to use.
Okay.
Find our data set that we're going to use for our predictions. We just give the prediction a name. We can specify which types of data we want to include, and then we can schedule it. For this example, I'm just going to save and predict. In a few seconds, we are taking a model that we deployed on Qlik Cloud that's fully governed, fully managed, and is now running predictions that we can schedule and batch. And that's just going to create a data set. And that data set is then going to be made available for us to just load as any other source into our application.
Great. Well, you've shown us how to actually use Qlik Predict to quickly build some predictive analytics on Qlik Cloud. How would Qlik Predict work in the flow of production?
One of the great things about Qlik Predict is that it's designed to have a fully seamless ML operations process. Everything is seamlessly done inside of Qlik Cloud. And so that starts with creating our data set, training our models. We can then analyze those using our embedded analytics. We can then deploy those models. We can provide the governance and approval rules, approving the models for use. We're then able to create those predictions, and we can do those in batch and real time, so we can connect to an API and make those predictions as well. We're then able to enhance our analytics. So this could be by using our Qlik Analytics connector for the simulations that we saw in the demo. It can be just as simple as loading in those batch predictions in our application. And then finally, we're able to monitor the performance of that model over time because the data we have changes and it's not something that is really following the pattern historically. The model performance will drop. And so that's often a good time to retrain the model.
And I guess that's why it's a loop. So you can go through that same process again to maintain those high-performing predictive models.
Yeah, absolutely. But importantly, Qlik Cloud is offering that whole end-to-end process and making it really simple. And in many cases, so transparent to the users that they don't even realize that Qlik has all of these very powerful MLOps capabilities.
Definitely. I wanted to go back. Earlier you mentioned that time series will be introduced. Could you explain how that is different?
Yeah, absolutely. At a simple level, a time series is just data collected over time, monthly customer transactions, for example. A multivariate time series means that we're looking at multiple related signals at once rather than just one. For example, you might see greater sales at the weekend or in the evening, different factors which are going to play a part rather than just say generally we're trending in this direction. By analyzing all of these things together, we can get much more accurate and reliable forecasts.
So really you're talking about analyzing and having a better understanding of the complexities in your data. And since forecasting is all about asking questions of the data, how do you ask the right questions?
Yeah, with predictive, we've got to ask a very specific question, and slight changes in that question can actually change the data we use and the way in which we prepare that data quite significantly. Take this question, how many products are we going to sell next week? We need to break that down. So we're actually going to ask, what will our sales volume be for each product in each store over the next 16 days?
I see. So you're getting into the specific details of that original question, and I guess that helps you narrow down the data that's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the first question there is how we prepare that data for Predict. Most of the challenge for people when they're getting ready for predictive is getting the data in the right format. Customers do this however they prefer. If you're a traditional Qlik developer and you've been using Qlik for a long time, that's probably a perfect place to start and just add some additional capability. If, however, you're not really into scripting, you can use data flow, and that's what I'm going to use in a second. And of course, if I just need to do some basic cleansing on the data, the new table recipe really gives me a great quick way of being able to clean up my data.
Sure, that makes sense. Good data in gets good predictions out. Could you show us how this works?
Yeah, so I have a set of data from my supermarket in Ecuador.
So we're in data flow on Qlik Cloud, where you've prepared some transformations of data for a string of stores in Ecuador to help us predict how sales are going to look in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly that. And I've actually got 5 different data files. So this is basically just what our sales were historically. We've got our holiday events, and we've got information about the stores. And then we've got information historically about how many transactions each of those stores have had. We need to structure it into a slightly different format. Now, I won't go into all of the detail about what all of these filters and joins are doing. If we look at the preview, we've been able to now transform the data so that we have for each row the date, what the store number was, the family of product, the sales, and importantly, whether it was a national, regional, local holiday. All of this data was in separate files. So all of this transformation brings this together, and we're able to then create our training data. And then secondly, create our prediction data. And so this is the data we're actually going to use to run predictions on a daily basis.
So since you built this in a data flow, you can refresh the prediction data on a schedule, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to train the model once, but every day I'm going to be predicting the next 16 days, and we can analyze that data every day based upon that process.
So what did you do next with this data?
What I did was I took that and I processed that through Qlik Predict, and I've now got a model set up to forecast for 16 days. So I've deployed that model already, and I've loaded that into an application.
Okay, so this is that app looking at a fictional chain of grocery stores in Ecuador, analyzing historical sales data and a lot of different factors affecting those figures and making predictions using that.
That's correct. I've got different product categories, different stores in different locations, and how many sales we've made. So I want to look at that data over time. So if I jump forward, I can now see how my sales have progressed over time and also how many products have been on promotion, for example. If I look at grocery has had to really ramp up the number of promotions. That's going to be around the competitive nature of that segment. But let's drill into a specific segment of that data. Rather than just looking at the sales, let's now apply the prediction of what we anticipate those to be. In red, this was what our total sales was for this segment of our products and stores. And this yellow section, which is prediction about what can happen.
That's so cool. So it's looking at only a few stores, predicting what sales will look like soon, and perhaps even what factors could affect it.
Yeah, exactly. So what we see here is just that 16-day period. The yellow bars are the predictions, and I have overlaid what our sales were in the previous year. Our prediction is tracking quite similarly to what we had last year, with some changes in certain days. So that's a really positive outcome.
Okay.
We can break this down by individual product category and store. But I think what would be more useful is if I compare that to last year, we can see relative for each store and each product combination where our forecast is suggesting we're going to do well and where we might be underperforming.
Okay, so even though the average was the same as last year, more or less, this forecast breaks it down into the individual store and product groups.
Exactly. So for beverages, why is this particular store going to see a significant increase, but this store is going to see a nearly 13,000 decrease?
Yeah, so you can take some action now to try and do some promotion or see what the differences are in those stores and try and keep those negative outcomes from becoming reality.
That's correct. I think the really important message with the predictive piece is that this data is not reality. This is
Yeah.
a prediction of what could happen if we just let everything behave the way it historically has. We can change something to hopefully influence these outcomes before they become true, rather than just reporting on it after the fact.
Yeah, this is a really insightful and powerful example. Before we get to the questions, could you just summarize for us the multivariate time series?
Yeah, so with multivariate time series, we're able to bring in multiple time-based signals. Importantly, the algorithms we're using really let the system automatically detect the dependencies and those interactions and deliver some very powerful models. We're able to generate really strong forecasts and insights. And if anybody's had the opportunity to do some of this stuff manually, you'll appreciate how much time saving and effort this can remove from that workflow. So I'm really excited about the opportunity with time series for our customers. And in general, I'm really excited about the opportunity that Qlik Predict offers for customers that have been seeing great, fantastic success with analytics and being able to really take it to the next level of looking forward and not just looking at what happened in the past.
Okay, now it's time for Q&A. Please submit your questions to the Q&A tool on the left-hand side of your On24 console. A lot of questions have come in, so I'll just read them from the top. First question. Is Qlik Predict the same as an ML experiment in Qlik Cloud?
Qlik Predict is the overall brand for the capability of using predictive analytics within Qlik Cloud. An ML experiment is one of the tools that you use to train those predictive models. In the same way as you have the data preparation capabilities, whether it's scripting, whether it's flows, you have the applications for building your analytics. ML experiment is one of the component building blocks of you delivering a successful predictive solution on Qlik Cloud using Qlik Predict.
Thank you for clarifying that. Great. Next question. Is there some example data like in this demo that I can use to try this out?
Yeah, absolutely. Demo data to get started can come from a number of different places. We do have example data and tutorials on our help site and on Qlik Community. There are also lots of data sets that are available for predictive use cases publicly available. A great website to use is Kaggle, and Kaggle is a community website where people can upload challenges and data sets, and people can then work to solve those.
Thanks. Next question. When setting up a time series forecast, how far back is it recommended for the data to go? If I want to predict 16 days in advance, do I need a year's worth of historical data?
It really does depend. We set a minimum limit of 3 times the forecast window. So if you're predicting 16 days ahead, we will ask for 3 times that. However, it might be that providing some more data will provide for a better prediction. It really just depends on what data you've got and also how far away you are from the model. If your model was trained a few months ago, having a slightly longer data set potentially would improve the predictions. But we ask for a minimum of 3 times the distance that you're predicting.
That's very helpful. Next question. The demo is great, but is there a tutorial available for setting up a time series forecast?
Yes, there is a tutorial. The Qlik help site has been updated with all of the new time series capabilities. And one of the additions there is a fantastic tutorial that's essentially a simplified version of part of the demo that I showed today. And you can follow that through and learn all about all of the different capabilities that are involved in time series.
Great. Next question. Could you explain the difference between training data and prediction input? My predictions are returning zeros and trying to figure out where my pipeline might be configured incorrectly.
So your training data includes all of the historic information you have where you know the outcome, whether a customer bought a particular product, that's our historic data. If we're going to make our predictions, then we need all of the input parameters, and then we're not going to have the outcome in that column. If you, for example, have got the customer list, but we don't know whether they've bought a particular product, we would have all of the information about the customer, about the products. We're going to leave blank the outcome, and that is the information that we're then going to pass in to make predictions. That's the difference between the two.
That helps clarify things. Next question. Is deep learning supported?
So deep learning is one of the many techniques that is used for AI and ML. Traditionally, deep learning is used for more unstructured use cases, maybe vision and other audio processing. But importantly, the algorithms that we're using for multivariate time series, these are based upon deep learning techniques and neural network based models and algorithms. For our classification and regression, we're not using deep learning based methods. We get better performance with other techniques. With time series, that benefits from us using those neural based deep learning techniques.
Next question. Can you explain what data drift is and how Qlik Predict handles that?
So data drift is how far your input data changes its characteristics compared to when you trained the model. So let's say, for example, that we had a customer satisfaction score. Okay. And that customer satisfaction score, when we trained the model, was between 1 and 10. Now, over time, if we saw that all of our data was shifting and we were seeing most of our data between 1 and 3, or we introduced a new category of 11 and 12, that data and the characteristics and the profile of that data would change over time. All of these different changes have an influence on how well our predictive model is going to behave based upon the new data that's coming in. As that data drifts, and in the deployment we can monitor that drift over time, you can then start to make decisions about, okay, maybe it's now time to train a new model. Your data is always changing, and over time you need to change your models and update your models so that they reflect that new reality.
Okay, just a couple more questions. How many predictive deployment models are allowed? Are there limits based on your subscription level?
Yes, all of the Qlik Predict capabilities are tied to your subscription and the quota, and that's based upon the number of models that you deploy. Now, you can switch those models in and out. It's how many models you can have live, and within the administration console, you can see exactly how many models are being used. The count is synchronized between any different tenants you have. So on your subscription, in total, it will show you how many models you have available. And if you use all of those up, you can just deactivate those and then activate a new one. And obviously, if you've got all of those being used up for real world use cases, then you can get more by discussing with your Qlik account team.
Next question. When will the time series capability be available?
Well, time series is available now to eligible customers. It came out on the 21st of October. We've been in preview with a number of our customers for a little while now and seeing some promising results from them.
Great. And last question we have time for today. I'm not a data scientist. Does Qlik provide some services to help get started?
So we certainly do. So there's a number of ways in which Qlik can help. The Qlik Predict help pages. There's fantastic resources on there which will help you not only in how to use the product and how to use the capabilities across Qlik Cloud, but also a lot of really good information about how to understand some of the concepts involved. That's a great source of learning some of the data science literacy, which is important. So you don't necessarily be a data scientist to use this. And actually, Qlik Predict is really targeted at empowering analysts and other data savvy and business savvy users to be able to apply that knowledge in a data science way. We've also mentioned Qlik Learning, and there are some great pathways there to be able to get started. And of course, if you want additional help and perhaps you're not quite ready to do this yourself, then both our partners and our customer success organization are there to support you and provide you with the right resources, whether that's in people or in education, in order to get started and move forward with predictive use cases and more generally enhancing your analytics on Qlik Cloud.
Great. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for this demonstration and showing what's possible with Qlik Predict and all the new capabilities that are available, especially time series, and I appreciate all the time that went into this. Thank you.
No, thank you. And really excited to see what customers are going to do with these capabilities as they enhance their analytics and open up new opportunities. Open offer to reach out through our online channels to find out more, either through account teams or through Qlik Community, to find out how we can help you and learn more about what you're doing and how we can help shape, predict, and our broader AI capabilities to help you deliver success. So thank you very much for having me on this webinar, and really excited to see what everybody's going to do next with Qlik Predict enhancing their analytics.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this session. And special thanks to Stephen for presenting. We always appreciate getting experts like Stephen to share with us. Here's our legal disclaimer. And thank you once again. Have a great rest of your day.